Chapter 24. The Silent Heartbeats of 1977. The first attempt to escape failed. The first days of 1977 arrived quietly, as if the entire city of Saigon had been wrapped in grey cloth that muffled both sound and hope. 2 years had already passed since April 1975, yet time had not softened the weight of change. Life continued, but it was a different kind of life, a life lived carefully, one heartbeat at a time. In those days, silence was no longer just a habit, it had become survival itself. Our family carried this silence like a second skin. Every look, every gesture, every word exchanged was measured against the risk it carried. In the alleys, one could hear whispers more than laughter. In the markets, eyes darted quickly before conversations turned to the price of rice. Even the wind seemed quieter, as though afraid of disturbing the heavy air. But beneath this silence, deep currents moved, dreams, fears, and plans that refused to die. It was during this time that news reached us, and Tom was to be released from prison. The return of Anton, the day we learned that Anton was free, it felt as a hidden window had opened in the house, letting in a small current air. He had been imprisoned since that fateful day on the road to Rach, when the pistol hidden in the car betrayed everyone inside. His arrest has been a wound that never healed for our family. We never spoke about it in detail, but the pain lingered in the corners of the house, in the worried looks of our parents, in the way my sister Tantam's hands trembled when she thought no one noticed. When he was finally released, he did not come back to Saigon. Perhaps he knew Saigon was too dangerous, too filled with watching eyes and restless informers. Instead, he stayed in Rach, where the sea stretched wide and the horizon gave him room to breathe. There, he began working on a small fishing boat. It was not just work, it was a preparation. Every net he threw in the water, every trip he made to the sea was also a rehearsal for another journey, one far more dangerous, yet filled with hope, escape. We did not see him often, but we felt his presence through the thin threads of news that reached us. Each piece of information was treasure, folded carefully like the secret letter. Knowing he was free, alive, and still dreaming was enough to keep us going through the grayness of Saigon. The shadow of Anton. At the same time, Anton lived like a shadow among us, because he had never turned himself in after 1975. He existed outside of the government's reach, or rather just beyond their grasp, always at risk of being discovered. His name was not in our family registry, which gave him a strange invisibility, both a danger and a blessing. He moved like a man with no fixed home, traveling between Saigon, Cần Thơ, and Rach. Sometimes he would appear suddenly in the doorway of our house, his face weary from travel, but his eyes still sharp, scanning the corners of the room as if the walls might betray him. He never stayed long, for a few hours, sometime a night, and then he was gone again, like a bird that could not perch on any branch for too long. For us, his visits were a mixture of comfort and unease. Comfort because he was family, blood of our blood, and seeing him alive reassured us. Unease because his presence reminded us of the danger we live under, the constant lie between safety and exposure. Yet in his quiet determination there was also strength. He carried with him the restless spirit of someone who refused to accept life as it was. His very existence whispered of another possibility, that one day escape would not be the only dream but reality. The first attempt journey to Rajya. It was early in 1977 when the first opportunity came. The plan was simple on the surface: travel to Rajya, where Anthong had prepared a boat. We were to leave together, not the whole family, but only a few of us, as taking everyone at once was too dangerous. This time, chị Thanh Tâm led the way, bringing only me, Anthong's younger brother Nino, and a nephew named Vũ. The choices were deliberate. Women, children, and younger men were less likely to draw suspicion. The hope was that if this attempt succeeded, others could follow later. The night before we left, I could hardly sleep. The weight of living, even temporarily, pressed on my chest. Saigon had never felt so fragile. Every street corner unfamiliar, every sound outside a threat. I wonder what it would be like to step onto the boat, to feel like the sea beneath me, to leave behind the streets I have walked all my life. There was fear, yes, but also a secret flame of hope. When dawn broke, we traveled quietly, blending into the streams of people moving through bus stations and roads. The journey to Rajya was long and uncertain. The road stretched endlessly, lined with villages, and looked both familiar and foreign. Every time the bus stopped, my heart raced. What if someone asked too many questions? What if they searched our bags? What if they looked too closely into our eyes? But we arrived safely. The sea air of Rajya wrapped around us, carrying with it the smell of salt, fish, and promise of escape. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine the boat cutting through the waves, the coastline shrinking behind us, the vast ocean ahead, betrayal and collapse. Yet dreams are fragile things. Not long after we reached Rajya, whispers spread. The plan has leaked. Someone had informed the authorities. No one knew who the informer was, but betrayal had entered the circle, and in those years, betrayal was more dangerous than bullets. Suddenly, everything was cancelled. The boat that had been prepared could not be used. We were told to disperse immediately, to vanish into the city before suspicions fell upon us. I still remember the moment I stepped onto the boat only to be called back. The words were sharp, urgent, leaving no room for argument. Ra khỏi thuyền ngay đi, đi nhanh. I froze for a second, my hand gripping the edge of the wooden plank. Then I turned back, my feet heavy, my mind blank. The streets of Rajya blur as we scatter. I had never felt so small, so vulnerable. Without my sister beside me, I wandered down unfamiliar roads, the dust rising under my feet, the houses of strangers pressing close. Every turn of the path felt like a labyrinth. I did not know where safety lay. At last, I found my way toward the village, searching for chị Thanh Tâm. Fear had settled deep into my bones, but there was also strange calmness, the kind that comes when all choices are stripped away and all you can do is walk forward. Returning to Saigon, the first attempt had failed. We returned to Saigon quietly, each step heavy with disappointment. No one spoke much about it. Words would have been useless, even dangerous. Instead, we carry our silence like a shield. Yet within that silence, life went on. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into months. We rose each morning, ate our meals, went to the market, walked through the city streets while waiting for next message from Anton, waiting for the next chance, or waiting for fate to shift. Life became like the rhythm of a heartbeat, steady, quiet, invisible, unless you listen closely. And perhaps that was the only way to survive, to live one beat at a time, without rushing, without speaking too loudly, without daring to hope too openly. But beneath that rhythm, hope still pulsed. For every failed attempt, there was the possibility of another. For every betrayal, there was a chance of trust renewed. And for every silence, there was a dream of one day speaking freely again. Reflection in silence. Looking back, I realized that what sustained us during that time was not only courage, but also the strange power of silence itself. Silence allows us to hide, to endure, to carry our truth without letting it destroy us. It was in silence that plans were made, that love was protected, that hope was kept alive. Yet silence also weighed heavily. It meant carrying fears alone without the relief of sharing them openly. It meant smiling when the heart wanted to cry, pretending to be calm when storms rage inside. It meant living with secrets that threatened to consume us. Still, in those days of 1977, silence was not the absence of life, it was its heartbeat. And so, first attempt ended not with departure, but with return. We went back to Saigon, back to the same rooms, the same streets, the same watchful eyes of neighbors. Yet everything inside us had changed. We had tested the edge of the possibility, touched the dream with our fingertips, and though it slipped away, it had left its mark. We were no longer the same. We were quieter, yes, but also stronger. We knew now that even in failure, the dream did not die. It waited, silent as a heartbeat, steady as the sea, ready to rise again when the time came. This is the end of chapter 24, to be continued.
Tell me all about this name, and it's difficult to say. It was given me the day I was born. Want to know about the stories of the empire of old? My eyes say more of me than what you dare to say. All I know